A fuel system capable of supporting upwards of 1,500 horsepower. No, we don't need this much fuel system. Alright, welcome back everybody. So in our last couple videos, we had taken chaos theory here to the track and made some fairly low boost passes. I think the highest boost level we were pushing was at English Mountain on the first track day. And I think we made about 12.5 pounds of boost, but I didn't really want to turn it up until we switched over to E85. And to do that, we've got to upgrade the fuel system. So I've actually showed you a few of these components in previous videos. I'm just going to kind of go over the components that I have right now. I'm not going to get real specific with it. Like I said, there's other videos in the Chaos Theory playlist if you have, specific questions about some of these items or how they work. But I just want to kind of give you a quick overview of what we're using before we get started. I also want to go ahead and apologize in advance if I'm slurring my words or anything. I actually had a really bad dental situation today, and we're going to get into the dentist tomorrow to fix it. But right now, let's just say I've got a hole I'm blowing air out of, and it's kind of messing with my speech a little bit. But anyway, this is what we got going on, and you'll notice this guy was not in the original picture. So this is a 105 millimeter Holley high ram that Adam Geske actually hooked us up with for a killer deal the other day, and it actually just arrived today. So I went ahead and threw it up on the bench because, well, honestly, this is part of the fuel system that's coming. I don't have a throttle body for this yet, or the throttle cable bracket. There's a few other components I'm going to have to buy before I actually put this guy on. But like I said, this is part of the fuel system, so I wanted to show this to you. We are going to be switching over to these SEP 1500 injectors, which I also got from Adam Geske probably about 4 or 5 months ago. So just keeping that in mind. This factory truck intake and the decapped injectors won't be staying long. And as a matter of fact, once we do this upgrade to the fuel system, those decapped injectors are probably going to end up being the limiting factor in how much boost we can run, how much power we can make. Of course, once we get the Holley intake on, that's all going to be taken care of. So on to the parts. So this is our 1500 horsepower fuel setup, guys. And I know a lot of you are going to say, you're probably going to ask in the comments, so I'm going to go ahead and nip it in the bud. Why do you need a 1500 horsepower fuel system when you're not making anywhere near that? The answer to that question is pretty simple. While I am perfectly aware that I am not going to make anywhere near 1500 horsepower with the twin GT3582s and this 5.3 that's currently in there, we do plan in the future to upgrade the turbos. Like I've said from the start, this was just the beginning, get it running cheap package here. And we are going to be building a stroker engine. Now, that being said, I don't ever plan on making 1500 horsepower, but I would like to see north of maybe 1200, something around that category in the future, guys, maybe a year from now or so. But I like to have some overhead, and I like to future-proof things. And honestly, I was going to build the same system, whether I built a 1500 horsepower plus system like I'm doing here, or whether I built a 1000 horsepower system, because the main component that's going to dictate how much power it's going to hold is going to be our fuel pumps here. So the first thing up, we've got our radium surge tank. I did a whole video on this talking about how it worked, how you hooked it up. Basically, this guy will hold 3 pumps. Currently, we have 2 450 pumps in there. That ought to be more than enough to get us past 1000 horsepower on E85. In the future, if we need more pump, guess what? I can just add a third pump, drop a third 450 pump in there. So that's the biggest, that's actually the most expensive thing on this table, other than the Holley intake too. But that's our surge tank. That's got our fuel pumps in it. Another cool thing about the way this is wired and everything is I can have the Holley kick on each individual fuel pump at different times based on boost or whatever. So we're kind of gonna experiment, do some experimenting with this, and like see how far we can push one pump on E85, and then, you know, eventually we'll see how far we can push 2 pumps before we have to add the third. So that'll be pretty neat. I know a lot of guys are asking all the time, you know, how much power will one 450 make? How much power will two 450 make? You know, yada yada. So we will find that out, guys. So the next thing on our list, we are running PTFE hose here. And what I've got is I've got about 20 feet of dash 10 PTFE line. And I've got, I think, about 15 feet of dash 6 PTFE line and corresponding fittings here to run all that. So here's what we're doing. My original plan was to run a dash 10 feed and a dash 8 return. Well, I'm not going to ramble on about it, but basically I don't want to do the dash 8 stuff until we get this intake installed, because I would have to redo it all to work with this intake. So for the time being, with the truck intake, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the old factory feed line, which is a 3/8 hard line, or dash 6, you know, same inside diameter as dash 6. We're going to use the old original feed line as the return line and just use, you know, a dash 6 return. I don't think that's going to be a problem as long as we don't feed it too much pump at any given time. We shouldn't have any trouble holding fuel pressure down with the dash 6 return. That's going to save us probably $130, $140 on dash 8 PTFE line and fittings right now. So yeah, that's the way I'm going to do it. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring the dash 10 line up. We are going to run it into our Motion Raceworks flex fuel bracket here that holds our flex fuel adapter, and it is a dual channel bracket from Motion Raceworks. I've talked about this in previous videos too. Basically, so your flex fuel sensor is not a restriction since it's just a 3/8 tube. You've got dual channels in this, so half the fuel-ish flows through your sensor and the other half flows through a secondary channel here. And basically this ends up giving you the same flow as a dash 10 line. So we can put the flex fuel sensor on the pressurized side, the feed side, which is, you know, arguably the best place to put it, and not have to worry about it being a restriction. So from there, we're just going to run a dash 6 line. We're going to neck it down from dash 10 to dash 6 for now and go to this intake. The type of power we're going to be making, you know, with these fuel injectors, the decap fuel injectors and everything, for the time being, I don't think having that short run of dash 6 is going to be a problem up here. And as I've already said, once we put the Holley intake on, we'll be coming out of here with dash 10 split to 2 dash 8s to feed the Holley rail. So now if you're wondering about what line and fitting I'm using, just like you guys have seen me use on other projects, we are going to be using the faster lines and fittings. And guys, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to put like eBay search links for everything you see here in the video description. So if you guys want to kind of copy this system or just use certain components of it, I'll make it real easy for you to find. But we're going to use the faster fittings, and I'm just going to be straight up, guys. We've been using these on several project vehicles now. I have not had any issue with anything I've bought from Faster. And it's cheap, guys. I mean, you compare it to, you know, some of the other name brand fittings and PTFE hose especially, and it's way cheaper. It's good quality, and, you know, they get their stuff to you fast. As far as the pull-up pump from our tank, we're going to be using one of these Aeromotive fuel sending units for 3rd gen Camaros, and it comes with an Aeromotive 340 pump. Now, since we're using the surge tank there, you really don't need this much pump for a pull-up pump. You could probably get away with your stock unit if you want to go that route. My sending unit was bad, and I didn't want to have to use a bunch of compression fittings and, you know, stuff like that on this line like I already have in the past. So I decided just to upgrade and go with this guy here. You can get these from Poor Man Motorsports is where I got mine. Yeah, so that's what we're using for the pull-up pump. Now, onto the fuel filter. This is a shipbox supply fuel filter. when he was speccing these fuel filters, apparently he had a little issue with the manufacturer and they didn't make them quite the way he wanted. So he actually gave me this fuel filter, but he did let me know that, you know, this was like a rough draft or whatever you want to call it. It was a prototype, and that, you know, he had gotten several of them, but he wasn't happy with the quality, and that's why he wasn't selling them. He was just giving them away to some people he knew. So I think I know what's wrong. For one thing, these fittings they included, like if you see this is a -10 fitting, but the inside opening looks more like a, I don't know, maybe a -8. So that might have been one of the issues that he had with it. I'm hoping actually that that's the only issue, because other than that, it looks solid. The seals and the ends when I took it apart look good. The filter element in it, I think this does have like a felt element instead of a stainless steel mesh, which I would have rather had. But we're going to try this out because it was free. But the reason I'm explaining all this to you guys is if this thing leaks or we have issues with it, just keep in mind that this was a prototype. Matt did not sell any of these. He just gave them away because he was not happy with them. So if something does go wrong with it, we're not faulting Matt. We're not faulting Shipbox Supply. I mean, there's a reason that he chose not to sell these, and the ones he's selling now are, you know, spec'd out the way he wants. So before I put this on, I'm probably actually going to take a drill bit and open this up to the proper inside diameter, just so we don't have any kind of flow restriction. But I'm pretty sure that's the only thing wrong with this is the two end fittings. Now, to pass our fuel lines through the sheet metal, we're going to be using these guys. These little pass-throughs here. I love these. I actually used some of these when we did our battery relocation. These are actually meant for wire, for passing wire through the firewall. And let me get the bigger one so maybe you can see how it works. Basically what happens is you run your wire through this. You know, you screw this fitting to your firewall or sheet metal, wherever you're trying to pass through. And then you tighten up this big ring. And as you tighten up this bigger ring, sorry, my phone's going off. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a rubber embryo inside there. And the more you tighten this big ring, the more it compresses that rubber inner fitting. So you can tighten it down and it will completely seal from moisture or smoke or dust or whatever. So in addition to keeping your wires, or in this case our fuel lines, from rubbing against sheet metal, this is also going to seal the hole up completely, so you don't have any kind of you know, exhaust fumes or anything coming in. So these are neat little items. Again, I'll link them in the video description. But we've got one big one here for our -10 line, and then we're going to have a total of 3 -6 lines going through. You'll see it in a minute. And we're going to have 2 coming from the old tank to our surge tank, and then we're going to have 1 coming back to our surge tank as a return. Anyway, that pretty much covers it, guys. That's our 1500 horsepower fuel system. I'm not really going to do this video as a how-to per se, but I will film some of the you know, some of the stuff that I do here. We might put some music to it. I haven't decided yet, but I just want to dig in and get this done. And the fact of the matter is, probably nobody's going to do this exactly the way I'm doing it, so the how-to would kind of be pointless. But I will try to point out how I'm doing certain things, just in case it might help you guys out some. I do want to say, for cutting our fuel lines, we're going to be using these. I got these from Speedway, and again, I'll link them in the description. I got these from Speedway. These are hose cutters. These were, I think, about $35 from Speedway, and man, they rip right through PTFE, stainless braided hose, pretty much anything. Now, I also, you guys have seen me use in the past these cable cutters here. They're meant for cutting battery cables. These work great up to about -6 hose. They may even work okay on -8, but I've tried and I cannot cut the -10 hose. There's just not enough leverage on these. So that's why I went ahead and ordered up a set of these big boys here. So if you've been paying attention to the channel, you know we have already actually run our wiring for 3 fuel pumps right here in our little fuse block panel, and we have run it over to where we're putting our surge tank, which is over here in this glove box door. And I have went ahead, I drilled some holes, and I actually put thread certs in here to mount my surge tank. So they just go in here with these guys. Makes everything nice and easy and secure. So I can just set the surge tank in there, bolt it down, and run my line. So, all right, so you've seen the parts. Let's get them put on. Plans are worthless, but planning is everything. I believe it was Dwight Eisenhower that said that, maybe, or Winston Churchill. I don't know. Whoever said it, they were fucking right. Or an even better analogy would be no plan ever survives first contact with the enemy, which is pretty much what we got going on here. Because I had this all planned out, thought I had everything I needed, and lo and behold, well, you guys see, it's actually taken me 2 weeks to get this fuel system done. And technically, it's not done yet. All the plumbing's done. Most of the wiring's done. I've just got a couple things to hook up. But I'm going to go ahead and show it to you. Basically, what happened was, I knew from the beginning, just because of my job, I was going to have to work on this maybe an hour or two every night after work. Guys, it's been over 2 weeks since I've had a day off at this point. I'm not going to get another day off till this weekend, hopefully. But I knew that was going to happen. What I didn't plan on was having to go back and redo things differently than I had originally planned. And that required me to order some different fittings and things, and then I had to wait on that. So I had planned on this project taking probably a week, working on it after work, you know, a little bit at a time. I had not planned on it taking 2 weeks because I was having to wait on parts. But anyway, it's together now. I had started filming some of this. Unfortunately, you know, when I had to take things back apart and I was like, this isn't working, I just said to heck with it. So the footage I had, it's not the way things turned out anyway. So basically what I'm going to do right now, we're just going to kind of go through. I'm going to show you what I did and how I did it. We started back here. We went ahead and removed the stock sending unit, and we put our new Aeromotive sending unit in. So we got our 340 pump we're using as a pull-up pump. We got everything wired up. What we did is we took the original harness that came off of our stock sending unit, and I just cut it off, elongated the wires, hooked all the wires up here, and then we've got this extra ground I ran in with the factory harness. It goes under there, and I still have to mount that. That ground, the only thing that's there for is for the fuel level sender. So I'm just gonna drill a hole here on the back side, kind of where the factory plug is down there, if you can see that. I'm just gonna drill a hole there, grind some paint off so we can get a good connection, and we'll hook that ground up underneath there. We've got our PTFE lines. We've got a -6 line going out, and of course that's coming into our surge tank, which we have mounted nice and solid over here in the glove box area in the back of the car. So that's for our supply. Then we've got the overflow line going back out and going into what would have been the return. Now our vent, we ran that down to our factory pressure relief vent right here above the axle. Then we've got our surge tank here that, you know, this guy holds 3 Walbro 450s, and we've already wired it for 3 Walbro 450s. Currently we only have 2 in there, which should, you know, support north of 1,000 horsepower on E85. So we got all that wired up. Over here to our little fuse box we got going on. I went ahead and cleaned up the wiring. I actually needed to do that for a while, so I took this opportunity while I was waiting on parts to go ahead and clean this up. You guys will remember when I showed you in the beginning, maybe, I don't know if I showed you at the beginning or not, it's been 2 weeks, but you know, we had a rat's nest over here wiring. Everything's paired up together now. So we got our -10 feed going out to the front of the car, and we've got our -6 return. Now in the future we may change that out for a -8. We just have to wait and see if we have any like overpressure issues. I don't think we will, guys. I think that -6 is going to be plenty of return, at least for the double Walbros. Now when we add the third one, we might start having some issues where it becomes a restriction and causes the fuel pressure to go too high, but we'll just see. And what's really cool about this is once I shut that trap door, put the carpet back, you won't even be able to tell anything's back here. Now, I had this insulation that I had pulled out, and what I was going to do is I was going to cut this piece of insulation off, and I was going to glue it on the back side of the glove box door here, and then I was going to take this piece of insulation and glue it down there. The reason I was going to do that is to kind of baffle the sound, because I thought, you know, I've got the 340 pump here. Of course, it's going to be under insulation and everything. And I've got two Walbro 450s here, and I'm like, man, these things are going to be screaming. Boy, was I wrong. So we checked the system, went ahead and pressurized everything. We got, I think it was 55 PSI, according to our Holley dash up there. And guys, you can't even hardly hear it back here. So I'm still gonna probably glue this insulation in, but I'm telling you, I mean, it was pretty dang quiet. It honestly didn't sound any louder than it did when I just had the single 450 in the factory tank there. So it's gonna be pretty quiet. I'm sure when the second pump kicks on, we're gonna have the, well, I haven't decided yet. I'm kind of limited on my IOs on the Holley HP. So I haven't decided if I'm going to have the Holley turn it on, or if I'm just going to get like a 5-pound Hobbs switch to ground out the relay for pump 2 and in the future pump 3. So whenever it sees 5 pounds of boost, it grounds that relay out over there and switches on the second pump. But the thing is, the only time that second pump's going to be running is when the engine is wide open and under boost. So, you know, you're not going to hear it even if it did get louder at that point. But it's really quiet, guys. Like, I'm not even kidding. It's quiet. But we'll go ahead, since we've got the insulation, and this is the factory insulation that used to be hanging right here. We'll go ahead and glue it on the inside of our panels here just for a little bit of sound damping. Now, one of the things that went wrong is I used the bulkhead fittings that I showed you guys in the beginning of the video, and I had originally drilled the holes too low. So I had these two here, which I'm still using for the feed and return, and I had these two, which were going to be used for the lines to the old tank there. Well, the problem is the lines are too short, and I couldn't make that angle. I was afraid I was going to kink the PTFE lines. So I ended up re-drilling 2 holes higher up, and that's what these 2 lines ran out of. And I had to order, because these were still at too sharp of an angle, I had to order 120 degree -10 and -6 fittings so that these 2 lines could go down and then out. So that ended up working out, but that's part of the holdup. I had to wait on these fittings to get here. I had to wait on more of these bulkhead fittings to get here. But anyway, that's done. The wiring's done. Everything's neat. Just like I showed you in the beginning, this guy's bolted down nice and tight. Actually, I still got to tighten that one screw up, but I've got 2 other screws in it. It's not going anywhere. Now, here's the cool thing. I was trying to figure out where I wanted to pass these lines through. And obviously the best spot is right here, because this lets me, when I don't need access to it, this lets me just close my glove box and lock it. Boom. It's like nothing's back here, right? That's the look I was going for. But what I was worried about was passing these lines through here where they were going to come out. Well, it turns out this is the perfect spot to pass the lines through, because if you look over here, you have your fuel filler neck, right? Well, the fuel filler neck goes right through here, and there is this huge hole in the frame right here, this huge pass through for the fuel filler neck. You can see it's huge. So what I was able to do is run all 4 of my lines through that pass through, and then, you know, the factory fuel tank is right here. So the 2 lines go to the factory fuel tank. They go that way. The other 2 lines end up following the exact path. I don't know if you can see it back here, but they end up following the exact path that the factory fuel lines followed. And what's even better is, from the factory, you've got this plastic panel. I don't know if you can see, but there's a screw up here, a screw up here, and another screw that goes right here. So this factory cover, this plastic cover right here, it goes in, well, I've got it upside down, but it goes in here, it covers all that up, keeps anything from getting kicked up, you know, it keeps all this clean. So the hoses are nice and protected. The factory frame pass through here, it's got like a lip that's bent over, so you don't have to worry about, you know, the hoses rubbing on anything sharp. I mean, it's the perfect solution, guys. It runs right through there. Once this factory cover is back up, you know, you could look in this wheel well, you'd never even know it was there. So moving on from there, we'll go under the car. And you can see that's the back of the car I'm aimed at. You can see, like I told you, the fuel lines are following the factory routing right here. I even used some of the factory clips right here. So that's our -6 line in the factory clip, and then our -10 line. It's just kind of tucked in behind the brake line and stuff. It's not going anywhere, guys. And I've actually zip tied both the lines to this brake line bracket right up here. So it comes by, and here's what's really cool. So I took our shipbox supply fuel filter here, our big boy, and while it is twice as long as the factory fuel filter on this car, it happens to be the same, pretty much the same outside diameter. So I was able to reuse the factory bracket that held our factory fuel filter. I was able to reuse it. I just had to take a hole saw and cut a chunk out there to allow my 90-degree -10 fitting to come through, and we just clamped back towards the side here. So there's our fuel filter. -10 goes to a -10 out. Sorry guys, there's not a lot of light under here, but it goes to this -10 out, and that goes all the way up to the front of the vehicle. Now, here is our original hard line right here. That used to be our feed line. That's a 3/8 line. So the end on it, if you remember back when, you know, we did the original fuel system on this car, I had bought these little adapters, and they were actually up at the front. They're I forget what they are, like 16mm to -6 adapters, but I was using them on the front of this line to adapt for, you know, the fuel lines up in the engine bay. Well, I didn't need that anymore, so I brought it back here, and lo and behold, it's the same size fitting that screwed into the factory fuel filter. So I just moved this adapter, this Earl's adapter, from the front back here to the back, and that gave me a nice, you know, -6 fitting for our new PTFE -6 line. So following that up, again, I used all the factory clips for the original brake line and the original hard line, and then I just every foot or so I zip tied the -10, the new feed line. I just zip tied it to the factory fuel line. You can see it's like that all the way up there. About every foot I did that. So then we come up here, and right here I cut this original line down. I used a 3/8 compression to -6 adapter right here on this line, and made a -6 line. That's now our return line. I'll show you that in a minute when we go up top. Our -10 line comes up, and it actually curves underneath the factory steering column there. So it shoots up through here, and I took our Motion Raceworks flex fuel adapter that we did have just tied straight to the factory fuel rail over here. I went ahead and I mounted it to the firewall nice and solid. So our -10 line comes up, and we've got a 120-degree fitting here, so there's no kink or anything. It goes right into our flex fuel sensor. Then it comes out with this short piece of -6 with a 45 on each side. So we've got a 45, put it above so you can kind of see a 45 shooting it out this way, and then a 45 going into our little adapter for our fuel pressure sending unit here, and then into our little 90 adapter going into the feed. And then right there you can see our return line, factory return line -6, and that's going down and going to the compression fitting that I just showed you. So that's all taken care of. I've actually got the coils back. Now what I had to do is I had to run the return line underneath my coil packs, but I've already checked it out. It's going to bolt right up. The only reason I don't have the coil packs bolted back up at this point is because I was checking for leaks. So on that note, guys, I have never, ever have I built a fuel system and not had at least one leak. And generally it's my fault. Matter of fact, 100% of the time it's my fault. So before we powered this up, of course, because all these fittings are technically inside the car, so of course I made, you know, real special care to go through and make sure every one of these fittings was tight. You know, I made sure the fittings going into the surge tank were tight. I made sure the fittings screwing to those fittings were tight. I double checked and triple checked all these fittings, but of course I missed some stuff. So we pressurized the fuel system. The first leak we found was actually this guy right here. And again, it was just because I didn't tighten that fitting all the way. I just had it hand tight. So we snugged that up. And then I found another leak underneath at the fuel filter, and it was the same thing. I think I just didn't have the fitting tight enough. Now, other than that, I haven't found any leaks. We've pressurized it several times, and I'm actually going to pressurize it right now, just so you guys can, you know, kind of hear what it sounds like. Like I said, it's not loud at all, guys. It's actually pretty quiet, even with all the access panels open. And yeah, I'll just show you. That's it, guys. I mean, that little bit of hiss is all you hear, and a lot of that's air because there's almost no fuel in the tank. But you can see just that little 5-second prime, it shot it up to 52 psi of oil pressure there, or I mean of fuel pressure there. So we're good. So this guy's no longer leaking at all. I've checked the fitting. Now the biggest thing I was worried about on that fuel filter is I did have to drill those fittings out. Like I said, the fittings that came with it, they were dash 10 fittings, but the inside diameter was more like, it was something between a dash 6 and a dash 8. So all I did is I took a 1/2-inch drill bit and, you know, just drilled the hole out to open it up. Now dash 10 is actually 5/8 inside diameter, I think. Yeah, it's 5/8. Dash 12 is 3/4. So it's still a little smaller than a dash 10, but at our power level, I don't think it's going to matter, guys. I really don't. Since we just repressurized it, I wanted to come back under here. This was the fitting that was leaking initially, and I don't see anything. We're not leaking. I don't smell any fuel. As a matter of fact, I don't smell fuel anywhere. So apparently all the fittings I put together are working good. Sorry guys, I'm sniffing because I'm just trying to see if there's any leaks, but I've got nothing. I've got no fuel smell in the car. I've got no fuel smell out of the car. I think we're good. So anyway, I really am sorry you guys had to wait 2 weeks on this video. It wasn't my intention, but like I said, you know, plans change and you just got to kind of roll with it. I didn't want to put out, you know, like a half-done video like, hey, here's the fuel system almost done. I wanted to just go ahead and get it finished, get it knocked out before I finish this video. So there's just a little bit of wiring left to do. I have to wire the flex sensor into my Holley IO harness here. So I've got to figure out how to get that wired up. And then like I said before, I need to go ahead and pin, yeah, it's this one right here. I need to go ahead and pin the lead to ground out the fuel pump 2 relay here to activate the second 450 pump in the surge tank. And you know, I'm still trying to figure out if I want to use my last IO. I've only got one, or my last output. I've only got one output left on this Holley HP because I'm saving one for a trans brake when we eventually get a trans brake. So I've got to figure out if I want to use that last output to do this, or if I just want to order, you know, a cheap adjustable Hobb switch and do it that way. I don't know, guys, but I'll get it figured out. So the next thing I'm going to do after I get that stuff wired up is we're finally going to have a functioning fuel gauge again. I have to pull the Holley dash out, and I'm actually going to go ahead and wire in the turn signals, the high beam indicator, and the factory fuel line, or fuel indicator line. So I've already made the gauge on the dash. I just have to hook up that one wire to the back of it, and we should have a functioning fuel gauge. Which is really funny because other than the DR Nova, none of the project vehicles on this channel that we've swapped have ever had a functioning fuel gauge. So I'm kind of stoked to actually know how much gas is in here. But anyway, guys, again, I apologize this video took so long. I know several of you keep asking me, when's the next video? When's the next video? Well, here it is, guys. It's out finally. Hopefully, it won't be so long between this one and the next one. But I'm going to try to get some wiring buttoned up on this car now. I really would like to try to take it to the track this weekend, or at least go out and make some street hits. Maybe get some E85 in it and start tuning on that. So thanks again for watching. If you like what you see, well, you know what to do. But until next time, get off YouTube, get out in the garage, get something done, and I'll see you next time here on Bad Luck Garage.